Hello guys, so welcome to the second part of our summer harvest tour. It's actually the end of summer, end of August, beginning of September right now. And today's is gonna be all about fruit trees and bushes like raspberries, blackberries and currants. So here we have a patch of raspberries that are growing right next to the apple tree. So if you look closer, you can see they're starting to grow on the top over here. And these are really ripe. So this variety comes right now in September. Last year I think it produced twice, but because it was a dry summer it didn't produce almost anything, and I think many of them also dried out. But right now we had some rain, so they should be producing more. So raspberries, it's important if you live in a climate like this where it's a really hot summer to put them in a shade. So as you can see, we're growing them under the apple tree, and I think they're doing quite good. We also put the mulch down here, as you can see, to prevent the grass. So pretty much we put a compost first, and on top we put like a dried grass.
Where is it?
It's important to put the mulch because it's quite hard to pick the grass between there. But actually once they grow up they shade. And we also want to build some kind of fence here because they, as you can see, they're falling down once they get pretty tall. So if you move over here, you can see we have some apples growing here, but these ones are pretty sour, so we just use them for things like juices. And here we have more raspberries. And also another important thing about raspberries is that you have to water them quite frequently because they don't like to get dry. You know, they're used to really wet weather and pretty cool weather. So like this, they're perfect. You know, like in a partial shade and a lot of watering, and they should be doing quite good. Otherwise, it's pretty low maintenance bushes. You know, they don't have to do much with them. We should be harvesting them pretty soon, but for now we didn't get much harvest from them. These are about 3 years old, so hopefully they'll be growing more and more. Alright, and over here we have some grapes. So these grapes are actually for wine, they're not for eating. You can see down here. I think we made a video about these grapes before. They're like a jelly. I think they're a few weeks away from being eaten, yeah, we literally don't do anything with them. Sometimes Sanya's father cuts them, but apart from that, there's not much to be done with them. And we didn't even water them anymore. And it's been really dry summer, so you can see they can tolerate even the droughts. So these grapes are really good for this climate, but as I said, they're not really for eating because they don't have much substance in them. We would rather prefer some other grapes, but you know, other grapes don't grow so well in this area. So just next to the apple trees and the raspberries, we have this big apricot tree. So as you can see, it's a huge tree. I think it's at least 20 years old already. And unfortunately, this tree doesn't produce much apricots because it produces flowers really early in the season, like already in like early April or even March has flowers. And the problem is that here in Serbia it's already a really high chance, almost 100% chance of frost in April. So they almost never have apricots. I think this year we only had a few apricots over here on this side. So since I know Sanya for about 9 years or 10 years, I've only seen twice this tree that had like a lot of apricots. So it's only about twice in 10 years that this tree produces, which is not that much. So we are hoping in a few years it will produce again, but we're still not sure if it's worth it to have this tree or if it's better to cut it and plant some variety that's producing flowers much later, which would result in harvest almost every year. But I don't know if it's worth it for twice per 10 years harvest. And once there was we had apricots, but actually there was like a lot of rain in the summer, and they just dropped and nobody picked them. So you have to be also have a timing for them to be picked, otherwise when they fall to the ground they rotten really quickly. So I'll show you some other varieties that we planted over there that should be producing much later. So you can again see this potato field that I showed you last time. So here we still have a few potatoes here left, but as you can see they're almost done because also the bugs are here. I picked actually some of the bugs yesterday. And over here you can see the cabbages that we planted already in early August. And they're just getting bigger right now as the weather is cooling down. It's still about 20 degrees, especially when the sun shines. It's actually over 20 degrees. So I believe the temperatures are still gonna get hotter and hotter. But I think these cabbages should do good, especially when it was raining in the last few days. We don't even need to water anymore, which is good. I was watering like every other day here, but now we have a little break. And over here we are moving to the trees and bushes. So I start over here on this side. We have 3 red currants. So obviously there are no currants right now, but at the end of June, beginning of July, we have a lot of red currants on these ones. And as you can see, there are also partial shade from this tree, but I don't even think they need a partial shade here because we have also currants on that side, and they did quite good even in this heat and drought. So but as I said, these ones are doing also good in the shade. I would actually say that this one that's in a almost complete shade is doing the best. As you can see, the leaves are not as curly, and these ones have more like a disease. And this one that's the most on the shade, on the sun, has probably the most, as you can see, has also some disease. And I think this might be also the Aphids infestation, as we have on some other trees. Over here we are moving to the blackberry bushes. So we're picking from these blackberry bushes for about 3 weeks now, or maybe even a month. And you can still see some blackberries here and there, but they're definitely close to finishing. Actually over here you can see the most of them. So they really need to be picked. They're really ripe. I should have actually picked them a few days earlier, but I didn't have time. So right now we're picking them. And blackberries are one of the fruits that you also, same like raspberries, you don't have to do much with them, and they're even better suited for these hot summers, so they much better tolerate the drought. So they're actually native to this environment. When we go out to the forest, we can see just blackberry bushes just growing in the forest or on the side of the roads, everywhere. So they're really native to this environment. As you can see, they're really tall. Look at this, how thick this thing is. So they're sprouting like crazy. And this is a thornless variety, so they don't have any thorns, you can see. No, unlike raspberries or currants, gooseberries, you can just go with your hand and don't have to be afraid when you pick them. So as I said, we already picked like I don't know, 10 or more frozen bags of these ones. So that's a really good thing that you can just pick them, freeze them, and then use them for your smoothies. You can blend them with dates and bananas. It's really good. So when the spring comes and a lot of rain comes, the grass grows here like crazy. So we have to cut it with the machine. And you know, when blackberries also grow, it's really hard to see what's what. So for next year we want to build like a fence up here, and they'll basically grow like that. But otherwise it's a really low maintenance bush or fruit. You know, you don't have to even water it much, as it comes from here. It can tolerate the droughts and it can tolerate the heat. It's really great to grow it here. The only bad thing is about this variety is it's not sweet enough. So when I'm trying these blackberries, they're pretty sour, even though they're at the peak its ripeness. So I think the variety that has the thorns, they're much sweeter. Alright, so let's move on to the trees that we have here. So this is a pear tree, and I think this is the only one that's doing quite great here. I'm always looking if there are any ants crawling up here, because ants would mean the aphids infestation. So the aphids are like a little bugs that are on the bottom of the leaves, and they're basically cooperating with ants who takes the sweet juice from them, and basically aphids just take all the energy from the tree, and at the end the tree just dies out, like I'll show you over here. So over here you can see another pear tree that actually died out, and this is not a result of drought because we are watering these trees I think quite enough, but this is a result of the aphids infestation. And basically the aphids just took all the juice from the tree and it died out. So here we moved over to the end of the field where we have this huge walnut tree, and this tree is shading all of these guys over here. So sometimes we have a sun in the morning here, but for most of the day these guys are shaded, which is good for things like raspberries. We have a few raspberries growing here, but I don't know, they're not producing. But over here we have this blackberry bush, and these ones are actually sweet, definitely sweeter than the other kind. Alright, and over here we have a few blueberries. So you can see over here this one, but used to have more over here, but each year the cutters, they cut them down because they don't see them, they're pretty low, and they didn't produce much because blueberries, they need like a acidic soil. Over here we have a few rows of blueberries. This one seems to be growing pretty good. As you can see, they are quite tall, but the problem is that they're not producing any flowers, and I'm not sure if these red leaves is a sign of disease over here, or you know, they need like acidic soil, so you have to just add some vinegar into the soil before the rain, and that would make it better growing for them. So I guess we have to do it more often, at least once a month, and you have to be consistent with it, because if it rains, it just washes off the vinegar, and again the soil becomes too alkaline for them. So yeah, we're still waiting for this to produce. Over here we have this apple tree. It's just producing right now, but I just tried it. It's really sour and pretty small because it didn't get much rain over the summer. Over there is a cherry tree. It's quite a big cherry tree, but also doesn't produce much. It has only like, I don't know, not even a bucket of cherries. It's only a handful of cherries each year. So I think it's also probably has flowers early in the season, so it doesn't produce much. Here we planted apricot, so it still didn't flower, but we're hoping next year or in a few years it will flower and produce a lot of apricots. I'm not sure, I think this must be a later variety. Peach tree. This was already big when we planted it. It was already like, you can see up till here somewhere, and it grew only last year a little bit, and it actually produced last year and this year as well a few peaches. But the problem is we have some aphids infestation. So as I said, aphids are like a little, I'm not sure if you can see, they're like a little green bugs that you can barely see at the bottom of the leaves, and they basically suck the juice out of the top of the leaves, or where this branch finishes, and there's basically like a sweet juice that powers the plant to grow more. But if there's too many aphids, they suck it out. But aphids naturally, they have predators like wasps and I don't know, other insects. But the problem is there is the ants who are very much protecting the aphids, and they're taking this sweet juice that they collect from them. So they're kind of like working together. But you know, for a gardener that's not good, because your tree can die. If you can see, this one is on the edge of dying. Many branches already drying out. So what I did was I put some kind of Vaseline, or is this some kind of oil for a bike chain or something, and this kind of prevents the ants from climbing up the tree. So it's a really veganic method because you don't have to exterminate the ants, but you just prevent them from going up the tree. So I just put it everywhere so they have like a, so they don't even try to go up. And I'm hoping this method will work. There's another method that can work, which is pretty much covering the tree with a soap that I did earlier, but it didn't help much. I still saw a lot of ants climbing up a few days after I soaped the tree. So I'm hoping that this is it, that this will solve the issue, because otherwise I'm not sure how we can grow any more peaches, because it's on all the peaches or nectarine trees. It doesn't happen with the apricots, just the peaches and nectarines. Over here we have another big tree. This was grown from a small tree. This is already like a 5-year-old tree, and it's a mulberry tree. This is a black mulberry, and Sanya's father was actually cut it down. You can see over here, he cut it when he was cutting the grass. He didn't see it, that's why it branched out. And why it's growing so big, because it's also a native tree to here. So it's really used to the environment here, the dry summers and the cold winters. So I'm hoping this tree will produce a lot of black mulberries for us, but for now we didn't even pick much from them. So I'm hoping in next few years they'll be producing a lot. We have another one over here, the same variety. So I'm hoping these trees will get really big. And it's good that we planted them over here, because they're not gonna be shading many trees here. There is only these gooseberries here that we just planted just last autumn. And as you can see, they also need some kind of cage to grow up, because when the grass cutter is gonna come, they're not gonna see them. And they actually started producing a little bit this year, but they're really also, same like raspberries, they're really susceptible to droughts, and you have to water them like almost like at least twice a week, at least once per 2 weeks, and they should be doing good. They're also like in quite a full sun, so I was not sure if they survived, but as you can see, they survived pretty much the hottest and dry summer that we had on record. Over here we have some more grapes that I planted. I think this is a white grape variety, and we planted some other grapes a few years ago, but I think it was Hamburg grapes. They didn't do any good, because it's just not good for this environment here. But this seemed to be growing quite good. We planted 1, 2, 3 of them over here, so we'll see how they're gonna do. If we're gonna get some grapes from them, of course we're gonna plant more later on. Over here we have also some raspberries. I'm actually surprised, you can see one of them dried out here. So this is the result of a really dry summer, but another one survived. Another one over here. Over here we have 2 more apricot trees. I think both of them are a late variety. So again, this is just planted literally last autumn. So we are hoping they'll be producing in maybe 3 years. First fruit here we have more. I'm not sure if this is peach or nectarine. It looks the same. And literally just yesterday I put the Vaseline again at the bottom here, because as I said, all of them have this Aphids infestation. They really like these nectarines, and they also like the pears, you know. So another one over here, and over here behind me is the cherry tree. I'm surprised it still have leaves. Usually at the end of August it should already have leaves fallen down, but every year we are picking from them. But the problem is you have to be here for that season. It's a short season for picking. It lasts like only like 2 weeks. So here we can see we have a fig tree, but we bought this last year, and the guy guaranteed us that this is gonna grow and produce, and he was right. It's growing a little bit and producing, but pretty much we bought it when it was this big last year. So this year it didn't grow almost anything. So when we bought this fig tree, it was in a small bucket, and you can see it's already a big tree, like at least 5 years old, I would say. and it was so much root bound that when we planted it probably didn't even expand, and it's still just growing in this little space that it had. So we are hoping it's gonna grow more next year. Otherwise we have another fig tree over there, but we have another problem with that one that I'll tell you later. Over here we had 2 pear trees, but only one survived. So I planted about 5 pear trees because we really like pears over apples. But as you can see, I think the aphids infestation just got it good, and as I said, one died here, another one died over there, another one over there, and then another one over there. So I think that's already 4 of them dead at least. And this one almost died, but then it a little bit bounced back, so hopefully it's gonna survive. I'm always checking for the ants if they're going up, but doesn't have now, so I didn't put any Vaseline on there. We have these blueberry bushes still here. Then over here we have the black currants that I prefer much more over the red ones. And as you can see, they did struggle with the heat, a lot of dried up branches, but seems like they survived. So I think the next plan would be to plant some trees here, but they take a long time to grow. So hopefully next summer won't be as hot, and I think I have to water them almost more frequently as well, because I don't think they're supposed to grow in a full sun like this. But we did get some harvest from them already, which is good. Another apricot over here. We're hoping that some apricots will do good, because apricots are really good for freezing, so it's easy to open them and freeze them. So if you get a lot of apricots at once, it's no problem, because you can freeze them and use them for smoothies, such as other berries. These Hokkaido pumpkins. Over here it's actually another apricot tree growing, but I think this one produced even less than the other one, so I think we're gonna wait maybe one more year, and if it doesn't produce, I think this one we're gonna cut down for wood. And it actually grows together with the wild plum, which is called purke here, and but also this wild plum doesn't produce much, so I don't think there is a point growing that even. Alright, so over here we had another tree. This is actually a Khaki tree, or a Persimmon tree, and you can see it's dead. You can just pull it out right now. You can see there's just no roots growing. It just didn't survive the winter. We actually planted it in autumn, and you can see it's a dead tree. It doesn't have any growth, any life in there. So I'm just gonna plant another tree instead of that, so I use the space. Just put it here so I remember, but at least I know that the Khaki trees are actually planted, the one on the field over there about 1 year ago, and also died out. So the Khaki tree doesn't like the harsh winter, same like a figs, and it needs to be somehow protected either by a house or by other trees around. But by itself like this is not gonna survive. Even though I thought it's protected, it was not enough. Alright, so over here we have another apple tree, but same as with the other ones, it seems like it doesn't produce big apples. It's only small apples here, and I think they are not ripe enough. And actually I was watering them, these ones, when I was watering the pumpkins, but none of the apples here are sweet. They're all sour. I'm not sure why they planted such a bad variety. They're only good for like juicing, so I think we're gonna juice them later on. And yeah, that's that. They just take a lot of space, and they're not much use for them. So I think I'm gonna pick them maybe next few days, because I see that some of them are already rotting even as they grow. Right over here is another apple tree, but this one actually produces in the middle of summer sometimes, or I think beginning of August, but I somehow missed the season. I don't think it even produced much because of the heat. You can see apples pretty much dried out as they're growing, and this one is actually much tastier than the other ones. It's much more softer and much sweeter. And next to it is another pear tree. And this one also not the best, not doing the best, but I think this one is already a few years old and was replanted from close to the apple tree to here. But I think it's doing pretty good. We'll see if it grows more. Actually, next to it we have another. This is another apricot actually. This one actually seems to be already like at least 5 years old, judging by the trunk, but it's not growing at all, the fruit or even the flowers. So hopefully it's not gonna become the same with this one as with the big one. But I think I have to also cut the top so it's not so hard to harvest after. So I think I'm gonna prune most of the trees in autumn, because if you let it grow too much up, it's just too difficult to pick the fruit after, and you know, it's just gonna grow really high and shade everything. So it's better to keep it lower and more growing on the side. And over here we have another pear tree. This one somehow survived, and judging by trunk it's probably even older than that one. This one seems to be maybe even 10 years old, I would say. Alright, so this one was also suffering with the aphids infestation, same like the other pear trees. And I can attest to that, because at the beginning of spring or spring to summer, you can see a lot of ants coming up to the points here, and they're just sucking out all the energy. So I'm surprised that this one survived so good. It's a really big tree, so now I don't see any ants going anymore. So it seems like the tree doesn't produce any like sweetness or any growth anymore. But in spring I'll definitely come here and put the Vaseline on the trunk so the ants don't have a chance to protect the aphids. And yeah, right now you can see it serves as a support for the pumpkin, which is growing right here. Here is another apricot tree, and again this one seems to be like at least 5, maybe, no, I think it's also 10 years old, same like the pear tree. But I never seen any flowers on it, so I'm not sure what's wrong with them. I'll try to prune them, and if not, we'll just have to cut them and replace them with other trees. But yeah, you really have to search for a variety that's good for here, because apricots are not growing so good here. Planted this white mulberry here, so I think next year we're gonna order more of these, because look at that, how much growth. I think when we bought it, I planted it in autumn. It was maybe just still here. It was pretty much small tree. It was definitely not huge like this. And look how much it bushed out. So in just a few years, I think it will become like really huge. So I think we're just gonna plant more native varieties like mulberries and just let it grow, let it become a forest, rather than trying to grow some apricots that, you know, don't produce at all. Hazelnut tree. You can see it's also struggling with the heat, and also didn't like the drought. I saw it was almost leafless a few weeks ago. And over here, actually I'm not sure what's this tree. Looks like a plum tree, but I didn't plant any plums. Maybe it was some special variety, but yeah, it looks like a plum maybe. Alright, and here we have a row of plum trees. We have about 5 plum trees, and they're all about 20 years old, and this year they didn't produce at all. I think because of the drought and the heat. Only this one's produced. Only that one over there produced, and I think it's because it's close to the compost, so it got more water and nutrients from there. But this ones didn't produce at all. And over here we have a peach growing from the seed. So hopefully this one is gonna do good. Alright, and over here we have a compost. You can see we also put in cardboard, also just cuttings from the grass, and also just food scraps. Here you can see we have some plums, but when you open them, they have worms. Alright, and on this grass field we have a few more smaller trees and bushes. This is a Siberian lemon tree, which didn't produce yet, but started like shooting out these long shoots. And over here we have these small varieties of apple and pear, which are just gonna stay like this, but they also didn't produce yet. Alright, and over here we have this fig tree, which is just near the house. So you can see it's just like less than 2 meters away from the house. So it's really protected, unlike the other tree over there on the field. And you can see some figs are just now starting to blow out, and they've been small like this pretty much since the whole summer. I think we got only few figs sometimes in July, and then since then they just stayed like this. I'm not sure if it's because of the heat or what, but just didn't want to get big. But now we see some of them getting bigger, but it's already 13th of September, so we're getting closer and closer to the first frost date, which is gonna be sometimes in October, so it's pretty much in 2 weeks. And I'm hoping these figs will get ripened, but some of them are getting softer. But it's, as I'm telling you, it's a really long season for these figs to get ripened. I was hoping they'll be already ready in July or maybe August. But otherwise this tree is growing amazing. It's not dying back like the other tree. It's just branching out more and more every year. So I'm hoping it's gonna get just much bigger. And it's also shaded by this how do you call this one, beech tree, which is pretty much the sun starts from here in the morning and goes like this most of the year, and then in the afternoon gets shaded all the time. So maybe it would grow even better without the shade, but maybe some trees do good in a partial shade, so we'll see how it goes. And hopefully when it gets bigger it's also gonna produce more ripe figs, because till now we didn't get many, even though I see these fig trees full of figs everywhere. Some people say that you basically need to cut off this top of the branches, so it stops the growth of the branches and focuses on ripening of the figs. But either way, this tree is pretty small, so I don't want to get few figs ripen. I would rather the tree to grow more, and then when it's already big, maybe I will try to prune some of it. But till now I think it needs more growth than it needs ripening of the figs. Alright, and over here is the Khaki tree, the Persimmon, and same like fig tree, you can see some of the khakis are getting pretty big here, but they're still far from being ripened. They're still green, and they said you need to wait until November for them to ripen, but I'm not sure if they're gonna ripen. They said the leaves fall first before the fruit gets ripened, which is quite interesting. But again, it's pretty close to the house. So I already showed you one persimmon tree was next to the glass house and it didn't survive, and we planted another one on the field and also didn't make the winter. But this one is doing pretty great. It's not growing the fastest. Like, since we bought it, it was maybe this height, so it just grew, I think, just this in about 3 or 4 years, same like the fig tree. But it doesn't show any sign of disease, doesn't have aphids, there is no ants climbing up. If there were, I would definitely put a Vaseline here. And it's really interesting to see fruit here. I didn't expect it at all on this tree because it's just so small still. So we'll see if these ripen and how they're gonna taste. But it's still amazing that we can grow the khaki persimmon tree over here in the harsh Serbian winter. So yeah, I hope you enjoy our fruit tree tour of the garden. As you can see, some things were doing good, but many things didn't do so good because of the dry summer. We didn't get much rain, only once per the whole summer. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll show you more updates on the cabbages and a few other things that I'm gonna be growing into the autumn. So just gonna focus on preparing the garden for the winter and just dig out more potatoes and things like that. So stay tuned for more gardening videos, and as always, keep cooking and keep gardening.